Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. I'm Elora Murray, and this interview, I would say it hits close to home because I get to interview our newest member of the Fresh Living family, Kaime Stroot.
Eek! I'm excited to be here. This is fun.
I know I get to interview you, and you're usually the one doing the interviewing.
This is special that it's you too. So thank you for interviewing me and getting to know me and even more.
Love it. I mean, we love you. We met you. We were like, this woman is great. She's so friendly. She's talented. And now I get the opportunity to interview you so everyone listening to the podcast can know you better, which is so much fun.
That is so much fun. Well, let's do it.
Let's do this. Well, let's start right off. Like I said, you are the newest addition to our Fresh Living family. And this is like one of your first episodes with Fresh Off the Set. What do you like most about being part of media and TV?
That's such a great question. I feel like we're all born with something that we love, that we're passionate about. And the goal is to eventually find a career in something that you love. But mine was a little bit, I knew I always loved the TV and the media. And I was actually, we'll probably touch on this, but I was a competitive roller skater and loved doing the entertainment stuff and always performing. But I just didn't know. And media can be a pretty hard place to work or to be a part of. And but what now I love about it as I'm in it is I love telling people stories. I've loved people as I was a little girl. I just was so curious, and now I get to ask questions for a living, and it just makes my day to hear and tell someone's story.
I love that. And I mean, that's really what it is about, is telling others stories. And I love that you said that. You're a great storyteller. Let's talk a little bit let's go back to the beginning, shall we? The beginning. You are actually from Texas.
I am.
And now we are so lucky to have you here in Utah. What was the best part about growing up in Texas as a kid? What are some of your favorite memories?
Oh my goodness. Literally born and raised in Texas. I never left. I've never moved anywhere else. And we'll get kind of into that and like why we were here. But Texas is just one of those places that it's like the yes ma'ams and the no sirs and the Southern charm. And I grew up in a place called Double Oak, and we lived on an acre, and I didn't have a whole lot of animals. My mom did. That was her life. Horses and cows and all the things. And it's so funny, actually, traveling around the world, everyone's like, you're from Texas? Do you ride a horse? I'm like, not really. But I think it's just a way of living. It's actually very, very similar to Utah in the way that it's family oriented. And that was one of the things I fell in love with Utah about, because it reminded me of home. So, that's just growing up there was just I don't know, it's just home. It's kind of hard. And now I love Utah, so I don't really know if I love Texas as much.
Well, you can love both.
Okay.
Let's just say that. You can love both, because it's funny. You and I kind of connected because when I first met you, I was actually born in Texas. My family lived there for years and years and years. And so I'm totally with you. I see the similarities. Let's talk a little bit more. So lots of times when people think of Texas, they immediately think, the first things we think of, like you said, horses, animals, and something else that everyone thinks about specifically is the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah, that is the team, baby.
And you actually have a really interesting story. You were on CMT's Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders making the team season 4. And I remember you coming in. Brooke was a little starstruck because she was like, I remember you from that season. Yeah. I totally remember. So talk to me about the show, that experience, because that's really kind of what propelled you into media.
It really is. It really is. And I feel like we all have a moment in our life that really changed the trajectory of our life. And that was that moment. I was going to college. I was kind of doing my prereqs, and I was on my way to nursing. Cause like I said before, I've always loved people. I've always wanted to I'm such a nurturer and the empath and all those things. And so I thought that's kind of where my life was going. I wanted to just care for people. And so my dad had dated a Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders years prior to my mom. Mom, sorry, don't listen to this. He had just said, and I grew up cheering. So I think I mentioned earlier, I was a competitive roller skater for 10 years. From there, I ended up the glitter and the this and that. And
oh, girl, yes.
Can you imagine Texas gal? We traveled all over the country, and I know I'm going to land the plane here. But that kind of started my the entertainment and the performing, and then I ended up cheering in high school. And so my dad had kind of came to me and was like, hey, why don't you try for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders? Like they do USO tours, they go to the hospital and they see sick children and you give them lollipop. Like this is you, like you would love it. And then you get to dance for America's team. Yeah. I said, okay, that's a great idea. So I trained and there's a whole process. It is a very political process, just much like a lot of things.
Oh, I mean, when it comes to, I danced for years and years and years and years.
We have that in common. I know that.
I don't think that people realize how intense and political it can be.
No, and in the young 20-year-old, it was just like, yeah, I want to travel the world and I want to represent the Cowboys. And I didn't realize how real political it was and how cutthroat it could be. If there are CMT, fans out there, you guys are CMT making the team show fans, like Kelly and Judy are intense. So anyway, I go into this kind of a little bit naive. Obviously it's a reality show. So they're cut, stop, start, this. So it's really my first time around production and that kind of experience. And in short, it's a very long story. If you guys want to go watch it on season 4 and humiliate myself, go for it. Because I ended up being the girl who was known to get cut twice. I remember when the show first aired, I went to drive through somewhere and some girl was like, "Oh my God, you're Kaime, you got cut twice." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." So basically, long story short, I ended up, it's a process. It's prelims, it's prelims, it's finals. There's 100 question test. There's like an interview. You have to perform like a whole routine. And then from there, you go from finals to a training camp. And they pretty much will cut 10 girls at training camp. So I ended up getting cut at finals. And that was that. Yeah. Well, I got a call one day that 5 weeks later, when I was done and I might try out the next year, they basically called and said, "Hey, we need you to show up on Monday." And I'm like, "Monday for what?"
So they were essentially like, "I know we cut you, but please come back."
Yes. And I was about to head out to Cabo like the next day.
Oh, interesting.
So they called Kelly on a video commercial shoot, and said, they called me back and they're like, "We can't tell you why you need to come, but you should come." And I'm like,
"That's such a..." What? You're like, this is very mysterious.
Yeah. And it was that. So I ended up, canceling my trip in good faith. Talked to my mom. She's like, "You know what? A door opens, go through it." So it's kind of how I live my life. And I ended up being asked back, the first cheerleader or the first girl in Dallas Cowboys cheerleader history to ever be asked back into training camp. So right. Whether I was going to be the girl who was going to make it or the drama or the what, but I ended up becoming the girl that it was all about. And if the old me would have been like, "I don't want that job. I don't want to be that girl. I was just trying to make the team." And, there's some other things that kind of happened, but it really just kind of showed me what it was like to be a part of like media and production and what I truly loved. And I ended up trying my hardest, and they dyed my hair red and cut it short. And that's why I have red hair today, which is kind of fun. They liked my green hair and or green eyes and red hair. So I ended up being the last girl cut, unfortunately, from the show. But you know what? It really, like I said, it changed everything. I went from, I'm going to do this. The industry might be hard to break in through. I'm just going to be myself. And if I make it, I make it. And if I don't, that's okay too. But I'm going to follow my dreams. And that's kind of been my motto, my voice to the younger generation of people, is just because you're told you're not good enough doesn't mean that you're not good enough for something else. And that's kind of the next door that opened for me.
And you were such a positive person. And like you said, your mom was like, "Well, this door opened for you," because sometimes when one door closes, another one opens.
1,000%.
And what's meant for you won't pass you. That's something I always say. So you went through this process, and essentially this is what dove you into the world of, TV and media, because then you started working for Fox Sports and Southwest. So how did your time on this show lead you that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can keep going through a door and the door can get slammed in your face. And then you finally realize, wait a second, maybe I should go through this door. And it's crazy because eventually, we'll kind of touch on this, but I ended up working for the Dallas Cowboys, full circle. But before that, to answer your question, I basically got cut from the Cowboys, cried my eyes out. I remember the producer coming up to me and said, "I know this doesn't make a difference to you right now, but all you want to do is change the world and impact people. And I promise you, after people watch the show, you are going to impact people in a positive way." And I remember crying, going, "Okay, sure, yeah, thank you." Well, a week later, the Dallas Stars ice girls coordinator for the Dallas Stars. They were the cheerleading team because that's huge in Texas. Every team has a cheerleader.
Well, I mean, sports is very, very serious in Texas.
Very serious. So I remember her calling me and saying, "Hey, we heard what happened to you. We would love for you to come audition for our team." And I'm like, "What?" So I ended up cheering for the Dallas Stars for 3 years. I was captain for 2.
Love it.
It was a really great opportunity for me. I loved being with a team. Kind of took what I learned from being becoming a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader into there and really changing that. So from there, they were actually prepping me to be the first sideline reporter for the Dallas Stars, which was a huge opportunity. I then had changed my degree from nursing to radio, TV, and film. By the way, my dad was like, "You doing what? You're going to be in college for like 5-6 years."
And you're like, "Dad, well, you're the one who told me to audition. So really, this comes full circle back to you."
It's totally your fault, Dad, actually. So I ended up, I was kind of prepping for that and training for that. And then I got an internship. I was about to graduate college with a radio, TV, and film degree.
Yep.
And I got an internship, at Fox Sports. So this is the funniest thing. I'm literally like working as like a cart girl for a golf course. I am an intern. I'm finishing college, and then I'm also a Dallas Stars ice girl. So it was like the craziest time of my life.
Holy! So when were you sleeping?
I don't know. I look back and going, wow, it was crazy. So then this role came up. Fox Sports Southwest came to me and said, "Hey, we want to audition for this role." And they said, it's called the Fox Sports Southwest Girls. And I remember going, I don't know. Cause I'm graduating college. Like I'm a woman now. Like, I don't know if I need to be, I have girl in the Dallas Stars already. Like, I don't need this.
And you're like auditioning, like have a little bit of PTSD hearing the word audition.
Yeah, like, wait a second. Exactly. So I go then, I call my mom, call my dad. And that's also like totally a Texas thing. It's like, Mom, Dad, we're a big family thing. But
I call my parents constantly.
Okay.
I call my mom when I leave home, and I call her when I'm going back home, and every day and like every moment in between.
See, I told you, Texas and Utah are like, there's something
but
there.
I don't know. It could be because I was born there, and so
we
have
that's
that.
True. Yeah, good point.
It's just my parents all the time. Like, I've already texted them probably 3 times today, but enough about that.
That's
Keep
adorable.
going.
That's adorable. I love that. So I end up auditioning for this job. And this is another thing. When you don't know what's on the line, you end up just being yourself. If I could tell anyone at home that's listening, just go for what you want. Go for it. And just be yourself, and that authentic self will come out. And honestly, you'll end up going so much further in life. And so I learned that as my 20-year-old self going, okay, I went through this thing with the cheerleaders, and now I'm just going to go for it. So I remember I didn't know what I was auditioning for really, because they were really secretive about it. But if I knew what I knew before,
you keep getting all these calls that are so secretive that turn into these amazing opportunities.
It was wild. So I ended up going on amongst like 6 people, and they were like asking me a bunch of questions about sports. And I mean, I remember just going off like Jerry Jones. My gosh, where did we start with him? I mean, I just like went on. And then I got the call. They're like, "Hey, we auditioned thousands of girls, but you're the girl. We want you to join our co-host."
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, so they had already picked a girl. Her name was Liddy. She was my co-host like back in the fall. Yeah. And I didn't get hired until February. So they were looking for the right girl, and I happened to be it, and I couldn't believe it. And then I had to tell the Stars I was, no, thank you. And so that was rough. But then I ended up working for Fox Sports Southwest for almost a decade, and did everything from, I mean, everything. It was such a really cool, I basically became a face and someone who represented the network. And so we were at the Dallas Stars games then, and that's really cool. I quit cheering for them, and that was really hard, but that was my team still. So
yeah, well, it's kind of like you still have that family there. You still have those friends there, and you had that connection. So, I mean, you just took a different role in the family.
Exactly, a different role. And I'm so glad that I did, because sometimes you just have to jump 2 feet in and don't second guess anything. And I did. And like I said, I ended up traveling around the state of Texas doing high school football on a big bus. And it was like the DQ Big Game of the Week. And I was always eating DQ and just getting to know some of the greatest, amazing fans. And then my second year with Fox, I ended up, me and Liddy ended up being the host of the Dallas Cowboys. And this was a moment in my life that I go, wow, there was something really bigger for me. I thought I wanted to be one of 36, and now I'm myself. I'm me, and I'm now introducing the girls who I can imagine want a role like this. Yeah. So that was a way for me to be in the media, to be able to tell other people who are trying to go for something, go for it and just, again, be you. So it was a really cool full circle moment for me.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell me more about working for the Dallas Cowboys, because like you said, it was this full circle moment. You were auditioning to be a cheerleader. You were heartbroken. Then things kind of fell into place with you. And now you're back working for them in a different capacity, but one that, felt better to you, essentially.
Absolutely. This was like 5 or 6. I'm trying to remember the years. It was like 5 or 6 years later. So, 5 or 6 years as a 20-year-old, you've changed so much. And so anyway, we started this role. We basically were the pregame host for the Dallas Cowboys. So pregame 4-hour show, we would have everyone come in and we were on a stage and we would introduce the cheerleaders. We would introduce some amazing bands. I've got to meet some pretty remarkable and incredible people along the way. And it was just one big party. We basically were like, everybody have a ice cold Miller Lite.
I love, if any of you have noticed when we're talking on this podcast, when Kaime talks about her Texas days, she has an accent. And then when she's talking to me, she doesn't. So that's how you can differentiate between the present and the past is Kaime is giving us an accent.
That was, and just for the record, it was called the Miller Lite Plaza. So that's why I was telling people what to drink. Yeah. So for the record.
Well, let's talk more about some of the brands that you've worked with over the years. There's some pretty big brands. So we've talked about the Dallas Cowboys. We've talked about the Stars. Tell us all the things.
Absolutely. Well, when I worked for Fox, again, we were working with so many different people. And then as I started to work for the Cowboys bring in a ton of different people to the stadium. So of course,
it's a huge stadium, and it's very well known.
It is very well known. It looks kind of like a spaceship, and it is all of that. Yeah. Jerry Jones did good. So I worked with. I would do game days for the Cowboys, and then I would come in and kind of do some other like emceeing and some other things for them. So I've worked with AT&T being one. It's a huge brand, but I got to introduce Aerosmith and, I know.
Yeah, I'm seeing them this fall.
Are you?
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. It was a moment like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And then you just get to sit front row and watch them jam. You're like, wow, you can move, dude.
Yeah. Well, he definitely can. Steven Tyler has a way.
He does have a way. Under Armour, Red Bull, Snap-on Tools. I know that's huge. That's a huge brand. So yeah, it's just been amazing to be able to, again, take one step forward in something that I always wanted to be in as a little girl, not knowing that I could make it, and then end up, again, having my heart crushed, but make it and say, I did it by being me and myself and being kind and loving. And, it's special.
I love that. And that's such an inspirational story for those who are wanting to go after something, but they're scared. Like, being you is enough.
Absolutely. That's been my biggest message is be you and be the best version of you. And I can thank my mom and dad and probably Texas because that's just a good morality place to live that I grew up as my husband always says that I grew up under a rock. I'm like, babe, I think being sheltered is okay though. Okay.
Okay. So we talked about Texas a ton. Let's talk about a little more about, you, your family. How did you end up in Utah? How are we lucky enough that Kaime Stroot ended up here in Utah?
You're so sweet. I love that. So as I worked for Fox Sports, I was there about a decade. Towards the end, I was no longer the Fox Sports Southwest girl. I ended up becoming a multimedia host and reporter. So I got a last name, and I was like a big girl, and I ended up pitching my own show. It was called What Now with Kaime, and I was getting ready to get going, and then I got pregnant. And I have always wanted to be a mom. My mom was like, since you were 2, I knew that motherhood was destined for you. My little sister, we're 18 months apart. She's like, you get in the crib, you'd feed her bottles. Yeah. That was it. And so my husband and we actually met through my co-host Liddy. So if I didn't have Fox, I wouldn't have my husband. So Chance and I met back in 2012. Thank goodness. Liddy was dating a guy, and I know I'm kind of going off on a couple things, but I'll come back.
Oh, no, you're good. And follow along, because as her accent changes, she'll be talking about when she's in Texas, and then when it's not there, she'll be talking about present.
That is so funny. That is so funny. So I met Chance, because it's a big part to answer this question about why we came here. So my husband's name is Chance. I took a chance on him, and it was the best thing I ever did. So we were married for about 7 years before we had our son, and got to travel all over. I kind of mentioned it on the first time I was on the show. One of the first things my husband said to me, like our second date, he texted me and he said, "Do you want to go north, south, east, or west?" And I was like, fun. Like, okay, so I picked a direction. He took me out in the middle of nowhere, and we got barbecue. I thought he was either going to kill me or
I was like, everyone be careful if they have a date that says that. Please be safe out there.
Oh, that's so funny. So that just shows our adventurous spirit. He is always, and I'm a Sagittarius that's me to the core, and I just need my partner to like take me all over. And so we would jump in the car, and when you're traveling Texas, it's like it's a long road. Like,
and it's flat.
It's so flat.
It's very flat. I mean,
it's boring.
Sometimes my brother, who still lives there, is like, "Well, there are some hills," and I'm like, "There are a few hills."
Yeah, but there's no mountains. You can go to Big Bend. I love Texas, by the way. Texas is amazing. It will always be my home, but I will say it is not as beautiful as Utah. So
I'm not taking offense. Every state has its pros and cons. We're just going to say that.
Oh, 100%. Okay, so basically why we came here is I ended up my show. So COVID changed everything, which changed everything for everyone's life. I kind of saw, I had just had my son in January. His birthday's January 10th. And so COVID happened like 6 weeks later. Still at the network, still doing stuff for Dallas Cowboys. And I'm finally a mom, and I'm holding that baby in my hands. And I am like, you know what? This is where I want to be right now. So COVID, like I said, changed things. We had a lot less work, but it kind of was the first time in almost 10 years that I got to just take a break where I wasn't at, the Cowboys game on Sunday, like Rangers game on Monday, Tuesday was Stars, then Wednesday was Mavs, then it was Friday. It was the first time I could just be. And like I said, it took us a while to have Kai, and so it was just the biggest miracle blessing ever. And we came here when he was 2, and I say here, we came to visit Utah. We are big skiers, so I ended up, everyone goes, "You're skiing? You're from Utah? I mean, from Texas? Like, how does that work?" Yeah. So I ended up, when I was a kid, we would actually go every Christmas to go ski in Colorado. So my parents didn't drive 2 more hours to Utah. So I didn't have a lot of experience. So anyway, we came here. We were kind of thinking about moving. I had broken away, from the network, and just, again, like being in the mom world, and we came to visit and fell in love with this place. The people couldn't have been nicer. I mean, people were walking our son to like the table when we would eat, and I'm like, I thought people in Texas were nice, but holy moly, people in Utah are so kind. And so we had the most amazing time and went home and honestly just kind of prayed about it and said, this is where we feel called to be. And so we packed all of our stuff up. I remember we had 6 weeks, and so I put all of our stuff in storage. I remember putting my son's crib in storage, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. We knew no one here in Utah, no family. I had one friend that I cheered with, and we just said, YOLO.
Well, where you feel called to be, and like that's been pretty much like the theme of like this entire interview. Like, you are one to trust your gut, follow your heart, go to where you feel like you're supposed to be. And look at you. You're sitting next to me now.
This is crazy.
Talking about yourself.
It is crazy. And it's kind of amazing. I mean, so when we left Texas, I left my career and everything behind. And I remember the Dallas Cowboys being like, "You're going where? You're going to leave us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is it." My parents were like, You're leaving? And I know that part was, like I said, I'm an empath. That part like was crushing. But I had a friend tell me, you got to just rip it off like a Band-Aid. And then there are moments where you have these amazing opportunities for them to come and spend 2 weeks with you, like nonstop. And it's like, back when you're a little kid and you're always with your mom and dad. And so they both have come to visit me. And they also both go, "You're never coming home. This place is magical."
Oh, well, we are happy to have you here. And you mentioned Kai a couple of times, your little boy. And that was, honestly, I think that was probably one of the first things you said to me when I met you. It was, you're like, "I'm Kaime, I'm from Texas. I have a little boy." And I was like, love it. So what is your favorite thing about being a mom?
Oh my goodness. That little boy is the apple of my eye. And I hope to goodness that we get to have more. We definitely want more children. And like I said a little bit ago, is I've always wanted to be a mom. I was always around kids, and I just think they're just this beautiful light in the world. And so being able to, I remember holding Kai for the first time. My sister had several kids before me, and I would love being Aunt KK is who I was. And the moment I realized, like, I'm not just Aunt KK anymore. I'm mom now.
Yeah.
I cried. And my husband was like, why are you just crying looking at him? I'm like, because I love him so much. You're about to do this. This is about to happen. You're going to have a moment when you look at your little boy and you go, oh my God, remember when Kaime said that? I am just crying looking at him. It is just, I don't even have a favorite thing. It's everything. I love from the moment I wake up to the time I go to bed. It is the hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah. But it's the best, most rewarding thing ever. Just to hear the things that, like, you teach them. Like, I always, when we're in the grocery store, when he was like real little, he can't talk really. He's just kind of looking around and you don't think they're paying attention, but I wanted to teach him compassion and empathy. Yeah. And so we would like seek a mom who had a crying baby and be like, let's go see if we can make him laugh. Yeah. And that little personality is starting to really show as a 4-year-old. He's so like compassionate and he cares about people. And so it's just sweet to see like your heart can be imprinted on someone's life if you're a present and good parent. And I love that. That to me is what was so important. So when I left my career, it was a really hard decision to leave because I loved it. I loved it.
Your career, like you said, you were doing this for a decade and you met all these people, all these connections, and it's what you were doing. It's what you felt called to do.
Absolutely. And again, like leaving, but there was no like, should I do this? I was like, no, we're doing this. I didn't care. Yeah. Because motherhood was what was number one in my life. And I knew when I was ready that I could dip my toes back in. So here I am there. But it's kind of been our motto. Let's take a chance and do something big. And we did something wild. My son's middle name is Wilder, by the way. So my husband and I, we're all so adventurous. And so that's just kind of our heart and our spirit. And so what we did wasn't too crazy for us. It might be crazy for other people. So we ended up just taking on like the best adventure of our life. And now you can find us all over the state. Like we were just in Moab. We went to Kanab. Like we're always looking. Our neighborhood is always like, they text us. They're like, where should we go? What should we do? What hike? Where? And so it's really cool. We've only been here. It'll be officially 2 years in June. So we've done some pretty awesome stuff.
Love it. We are so happy to have you here and to have you as part of the Fresh Living team. I'm sorry to the Dallas Cowboys that we have you now.
That's okay.
It is what it is,
baby.
I want to ask you this question before we wrap up. What would you say to someone who is like listening to your story and is like, oh man, like she has had all these opportunities and she just like went for things. What would you say to someone who is maybe afraid to go after a dream?
Oh, I would say don't be afraid. I would say look within, find out what it is that you love, and just go for it. Now, listen, and I get it. This life is expensive. It's hard to do things. You got to pay your bills. But if you can just take one thing that you love and take baby steps towards that, you will go for it 100%. And when I think the biggest thing I learned, I mentioned it earlier, is when someone tells you you're not good enough, you don't have to believe them. We can always be better. My husband and I always say iron sharpens iron. So sharpen yourself as best as you can, but be who you were born to be, and just be the best version of yourself. So I say do it all day, baby.
Go for it. Love it. All right.